Welcome, book lovers, to Zen Haven Book Club. My name is Russ Hampel. I'm a teacher in sunny Florida. I'm originally from the beautiful shores of Long Island, New York. So excited to share the space, a Zen haven for readers who love diving into captivating stories, exploring new worlds and different genres through books. So get comfy and get grounded, grab your favorite beverage, and let's journey together into the estate. The first chapter starts now. Chapter 1, The Waterfall. When Anna heard muffled noises coming from the basement, she was startled. At first, she thought it was the oil burner, but the heat wasn't on. Against her better judgment, she decided to go down and check it out. She was new in the house and home alone. She hadn't gone down a staircase in quite some time. She should have waited for Roger. But she was stubborn about accepting help with her disability. She could do this. It would be an adventure, at the very least. In hindsight, it was not a good idea to prop open the door with her wheelchair, much less get out of it to descend the steps. When the chair slid backward, the heavy door slammed shut, and Anna tumbled. Thankfully, Anna's athleticism had not been diminished by her accident. With cat-like reflexes, she snagged the railing with both hands, narrowly avoiding a potential neck-breaking plunge down a long flight of stairs. She had a brief flashback to a triathlon accident where she lost control of her bike and went careening into the woods. Now Anna found herself trapped in a dark, musty cellar without the use of her legs. The floor was hard and cold as she crawled around in search of a light switch. It was a bad situation, but this was nothing compared to what she had been through months earlier. At 35, Anna Collins had a bright future and the world ahead of her. She recently started a new job in Washington, D.C. with the NARA, N-A-R-A, National Archives and Records Administration. She loved history and believed that future generations could learn much from it. Anna was also an accomplished runner and triathlete with a bookcase of trophies to show it. Currently unattached, Anna was okay with not having anyone special in her life for the last few years. She was focusing on her career. Anna valued her independence, but was still open to relationships if the right person came along. If she weren't so busy enough, she was pursuing her PhD in the evenings and on weekends. She often imagined that being a college professor would be a nice career progression. Anna's coworkers saw her as a driven, task-oriented woman who could adapt to any situation. Unfortunately, none of that would prepare her for what was about to happen. She didn't know it, but her life was about to drastically change. If life is like a flowing river, Anna was about to experience a waterfall. Monday morning started out like any other day. An early spring had set the annual Washington cherry blossoms in motion, a welcome harbinger of spring after a long gray winter. Her morning run around the reflecting pool was spectacular, the air crisp and cool. She wished she could put in a few more miles, but she had no more time. She had a busy day ahead of her. After work, she was taking the Beltway to Gaithersburg to meet with a professor to discuss her potential dissertation. Anna's boss, Roger, gave her the green light to head out early, giving her a thumbs up in the hall as she was leaving. The workday had gone super fast. Exciting times ahead. One odd thing was seeing a young girl who appeared to be about 12 in the hall. When she passed her by, the girl turned and said, "Hi, Anna." Anna replied, "Hi, do we know each other?" "No, I just saw your name, Anna Collins, on your ID, that's all." Anna instinctively looked down at her own badge as if to check. "Oh, okay," she said. "I assume you're here for the tour, but I'm running out. Come back tomorrow." The girl did not reply to the tour comment, saying only, "Be careful, Anna. The roads are wet." "Thanks, kid," Anna said with a bit of a frown. The kid was right. Beltway was a mess and wet. She was crawling along with all other cars in a parade of overly cautious drivers. white-knuckled on the wheel. The only traffic going the other way was moving fast. Anna's thoughts drifted to that little girl. There was something odd about her. She seemed overly familiar with me, Anna thought. Anna's mind returned to the current concerns, as the traffic would make her late for the professor. She was already full of anxiety about the potential outcome of the meeting. Anna decided to text him. ETA 20 minutes late, sorry, Anna. Texting and driving are never a good combination, but she did it anyway. Suddenly, the car in front was braking hard, and so was Anna. Her phone slipped from her hand, floating in the air as if time itself slowed down. Her new radial tires offered no help as the car hydroplaned on the slick pavement, headed toward the car ahead. A crash was imminent, so she braced herself for impact. Oh, shit! Then nothing. Crisis averted. The car stopped with an inch to spare. Her heart was racing. Things could have been bad. Before long, traffic was moving and Anna was off to the races. Professor Jonas was understanding and the meeting went well. Anna's thesis would be about the economic parallels that precede every major war. It was a history buff's dream, and her research would help predict future conflicts before they began. Professor Jonas thought it was terrific. Wonderful, Anna thought. I could really make a difference in the world. This was one of Anna's greatest days. Things were finally falling into place. The drive home was uneventful at first. The earlier traffic jams had loosened up, and things were moving well. Everyone was zipping along, and Anna's thoughts turned to food. She was going to stop for sushi on her way home. Since she was meeting friends at 6 a.m. for a 6 a.m. run tomorrow, it would be early to bed. Out of nowhere, Anna had an odd feeling. It wasn't as much of a panic attack as it was nervousness. She talked to herself, as she often did. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Anna's next conscious thoughts came in a series of flashes. Awake and asleep. Seconds awake, then out. Bright lights, then out. Truck's horn, then out. Shards of glass hitting her face. People around her, then there were none. Sirens and red lights on, then off. A spotlight, then darkness. When Anna regained full consciousness, 6 days had passed. Anna's drive back from Gaithersburg had been fine. She was driving well and paying close attention to the road ahead. What Anna didn't know was that a big rig in the oncoming lane was having a front tire blowout. The panicked driver struggled to keep control of his vehicle as it zigzagged side to side. He sounded his horn and firmly gripped the wheel. It was no use. The 20-ton vehicle careened over the divider into southbound traffic. It was an unfortunate case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thousands of cars were on that road that day, but it was Anna's car that the truck landed on. It was a horrible thing and a devastating event, but it could have been so much worse. While the truck driver did not survive, Anna was still alive. When Anna awoke from her induced coma, the world she knew before the accident was gone. Machines buzzing and bright lights blinding. She was disoriented and confused. She had to get out of bed. She had to go to work. She had to meet her friends for the morning run. She tried to move her legs. She could not. A dull headache made things blurry, and heavy medication slurred her speech. "Where am I?" she yelled, somewhat incoherently. Tubes were attached to both arms and monitors at the head of the bed. She suddenly realized she was in the hospital and her situation was dire. It was easy to see that her legs had taken the brunt of the accident. They were still there, but entombed in casts. She tried to wiggle her toes. She could not. Tears of desperation and powerlessness flooded her eyes. Her mom, Carrie, was the first person to enter the room, closely followed by John, her dad. Their red eyes told her that they had also been crying. "We are so sorry this happened to you, Anna. We love you so much." The gravity of the situation sank in even more. She had never seen her parents cry. Anna screamed out and began to pull out her tubes. Her father held her arms while her mom called for the nurse. Within minutes, Anna was sedated. The next time she woke, a different man and woman was sitting beside her. When they spoke, they were incredibly direct. "Hello, Anna. I am Dr. Benson. I performed your surgery. I want to give you an update on your situation." He had kind eyes, but the rest of his face was covered by a mask. "You were in a major accident that required extensive surgery. Initially, we had to put you in an induced coma, and you have been out for several days. This is my colleague, Dr. Song. She heads up the psychology department here at the hospital. She's here to help you because your recovery is going to take time, both physically and emotionally." Dr. Song took her hand in hers. Again, a masked face, but she could see her quiet confidence. "We are here to answer all of your questions," she said, as Anna suddenly realized that her tube-pulling incident probably triggered the need for the hospital shrink. "Just give me the details," Anna demanded impatiently. Dr. Song took a long breath and began to explain. "Anna, you were in a serious auto accident that was none of your fault. An 18-wheeler crossed the divider into oncoming traffic and landed on the front of your car. Your legs were crushed in the process, and you had to be cut out of the car. You sustained multiple breaks in both legs and had 8 operations to repair and augment your bones. Permanent pins and other hardware had to be added. Being the athlete that you are, you did very well through surgery. Miraculously, your upper body was not seriously damaged." "Stop for a second," Anna asked. "Will I walk again? That's all I want to know." Dr. Benson chimed in. "We're not sure at this point." "I can't do this," Anna said, with tears running down her face, gripping the bedsheets with both hands. "I had so much I wanted to accomplish. I'm a runner. I can't live this way." Dr. Song spoke softly. "Yes, you can, Anna. We will get you all the help you need. No question, it'll take time, but people survive trauma and not only exist, but thrive. You will get there. I promise." As expected, it was a long and winding road for Anna over the next year. She not only did it for herself, but for her parents who loved her deeply. She would never want to disappoint them. They were part of Team Anna. Anna knew she had the wherewithal to adapt to her new life. She spent countless hours with a psychologist, a support group, and her family's parish priest. Being a spiritual woman and having loving parents helped Anna tremendously. Her mom always told her that things happen for a reason. The reason for this, however, remained a mystery. In any case, it took only weeks to master the wheelchair, and she was optimistically thinking about doing a 5K race with it someday. Anna's spirit grew a little each day. A pleasant surprise was that her boss from the archives began to visit her. Roger was a little older than her and widowed. They had not known each other long, so it was fun for them to share past experiences. Buying his team coffee and positive reinforcement was his management style. He was deeply concerned about somebody he barely knew. Anna toyed with the idea that this could develop into a relationship beyond work, but she was not there yet. She would never want to burden a healthy man with a wheelchair-bound girlfriend. As a fiercely independent woman, Anna never imagined depending on anyone. She did, however, look forward to Roger's visits. The law firm took Anna's accident case was top-notch. Anna would require resources that she could not afford. The trucking company obviously had insurance for this type of event, but it was a bit of a battle to get the proper settlement for a woman who was once on the track for a dynamic career path. Being wheelchair-bound in the courtroom was humiliating. All eyes were on her as she sheepishly entered the room. It made her feel small. It was also stressful to have to relive the details of the crash, although she remembered little of it. She felt like she was a visual aid in a dog and pony show. When the curtain came down, Anna's share of the settlement was over 7 figures. She could tell by the smiles on her parents' faces that there was a giant release of stress. Anna was simply happy to see that Roger was seated next to them. Anna let go of her lease and moved in with her parents. The archives generously granted her leave of absence from her job so she could focus on healing. She would not be able to drive a car and did not want to be ferried around by others to and from work. It It was not comfortable living with her mom and dad again after all these years. She felt she was imposing on them and resented when they tried to baby her. She immediately thought about buying a house of her own with the settlement. She would have to make it ADA compliant, she thought. Although she never imagined being in this position, she felt trapped, limited. While she worked out her upper body twice a day, the exercise endorphins could not counter her growing depression. Visits from Roger continued, but she kept him at arm's length. He was a good man and deserved better. He seemed to want more, but she was not ready. She wanted to feel much better about herself before she could feel good about someone else. Secretly, she never wanted to lose him. He was a link to her past life, the last thread of her previously normal self. During his visits, they would look at real estate online. She wanted to buy something in the spring and move in during the summer. They looked at fixer-uppers, condominiums, and industrial lofts. Must have an elevator. Anna loved nature, and a rural home with a little property would be ideal. She also loved history, so a historic home could also work. House hunting was fun, and she kept her mind off her challenges. Roger always made her laugh. Schoolwork was also a great distraction from Anna's woes, and her thesis began to take form. Finding common economic causes for America's great wars was both challenging and rewarding. From the American Revolution to the Civil War, in both world wars, she gathered facts from standard and non-standard places. Overtaxation, loss of free labor, reduction of international trade, all seemed to tie wars together. Finding the tipping point for future wars would be next. Hannah loved the richness of history, and equating quests with investigative detective work was a bonus. She would be solving world problems, and that was great. If she could only figure out how to feel better about herself. Pausing at every mirror she passed, she sighed at the diminished woman in a wheelchair. She had to fight that feeling. Weight training and swimming laps at our local pool became Anna's healthy new addiction. A floating device held her legs up so she could pull herself prone through the pool. Swimming made her forget that her legs didn't work. It was soothing to the mind. Repetitious strokes and peaceful thinking became Zen-like. When the body is in motion, the mind rests. Anna would dream about running around the reflecting pool as the sun came up over the Lincoln Memorial. Now those experiences would never be possible. She would have to find new ways to live richly. Anna missed going to work every day. She missed the excitement, the projects, the meetings, and the interaction. She missed heading out for a beer after work with her colleagues. She missed feeling important and relevant. At work, people depended on her, asked her questions. She was needed. At work, she solved problems and resolved issues when they arose. The National Archives is a magical place. The history of our great nation is forever preserved there. 1 million stories lived in those documents, and perhaps 1 million mysteries too. Anna always believed that somewhere there was a common thread that tied everything together. Maybe it was a hub where every one of the spokes met. She often wondered if the loose ends in her own life would somehow tie together.